For those of you who've looked at the poll on the WOVA app, if you're desperate to know the answers, I have them here. If anybody completed the poll. What proportion of global greenhouse emissions does the agriculture and food sector contribute? Any guesses? 30%. Close. And what's responsible for capturing more carbon? Is it whales or the Amazon rainforest? Whales, and that is because phytoplankton, which thrive on iron and nitrogen in whales' waste, capture 37 billion metric tons of CO2, which is equivalent to 4 times the Amazon forest. And how many people depend on smallholder farms for food and income? It's actually 2 billion people. So we're talking about 2 billion out of 8 billion global population. And is Africa a net importer of food, yes or no? Yes, it is. Okay, so I think let's get straight to the agenda. We're running a little bit behind, but I think we can make up the time. For those of you who've just joined, my name is Victoria Claus. I work with the AgriFin program at Mercy Corps, and welcome. It's really good to see so many people here today. The agenda today, I'll just start by providing a bit of introduction to AgriFin's work in digital climate smart agriculture. It's quite a mouthful, so I'm going to shorten it to DCSA. I'll then hand over to Elias and Kristen from the Sprout team who launch officially at ALE the Sprout platform. We'll then hear from 4 of our partners we've been working with this year. So Media, Learn.Inc., Farm to Feed, and ILRI as part of CGIR. And then we'll have some time hopefully for some audience Q&A, so please think of your questions. And then finally, we'll have a panel discussion. We'll invite two more panelists up to the stage as well to join our speakers, and we'll talk about how digital tools can make the transition to sustainable agriculture both affordable and more attractive to smallholders. Next slide, please. Thanks. Okay, so starting with AgriFin's, next slide, please. AgriFin's CSA or DCSA strategy. Might be helpful just very briefly to summarize what climate smart agriculture is in the smallholder context for those of you that maybe are not so familiar. In my mind, I like to look at a simple or like a very simplified version of CSA, which is essentially farming in a smart way in today's climate. The FAO defines CSA as an approach. Yeah, it's an approach that helps to guide actions that transform agri-food systems towards green and climate-resilient practices. So when it comes to smallholder agriculture, we're looking at 3 main outcomes at the smallholder level. So of course, increased but sustainable productivity increases and incomes, enhanced resilience, and of course, reduced emissions. So I won't spend too long on that slide. On to the next slide. So AgriFin's climate smart agriculture strategy, what do we do in this space and what have we been doing and how do we implement this strategy? I thought it would be helpful just to provide a bit of a recap on this to the audience, our annual learning event audience today, just because we've made quite a lot of progress in the last year or 18 months on this strategy. So essentially, our role at AgriFin, or how we see our DCSA work, is bringing or providing a bridge between the ag-tech, fintech, digital ecosystem, if you like, on the left, and the climate smart agriculture ecosystem on the right. And so what we do is we're leveraging all the benefits or unique benefits of digital technology. I don't think I need to explain that to the audience today, but we're talking about ability to reach more people faster at a lower cost. And this is really the scale that we need to be addressing the climate emergency. So we know that about 2 million people, as I mentioned, out of our now population of 8 billion globally, depend on smallholder agriculture for food and incomes. And because 95% of agriculture in sub-Saharan Africa is rain-fed, which means it depends on rainfall, smallholder farmers are so vulnerable to these changes in weather. So when we talk about DCSA, we're addressing ongoing challenges that smallholders face. We're all familiar: access to market, access to training, access to financial services. But we're also talking about new and additional challenges that are coming up and will continue to face farmers in the next 20, 30 years from now as a result of climate change. So this could be higher temperatures that are leading to lower yields, or more and different pest outbreaks, more unpredictable weather, which is very difficult to plan when to plant. So today you're going to hear from some of our partners we've been working with at AgriFin, which is really exciting. And there are some other partners we work with, I think in the room, or I've definitely seen them here today. And just to mention a few of them, Ignitia in Nigeria. We've just started off an engagement with them, providing support to test the viability and hopefully prove the viability of the agent channel in Nigeria to scale local weather information, as well as location and crop-specific advice. We're also working with Crop Nuts and Apollo Agriculture, who are mapping soil in Kenya to improve their input recommendations for farmers. And COPE.ADAPT, of course, some of you would have heard this morning, we're working with COPE.ADAPT and other partners on the investment blueprints in Ethiopia and Rwanda. So lots of exciting work been happening this year. Of course, we have done a lot of work in the past. We've worked on climate solutions with Pula, Acorn Insurance, for example, early warning systems during the locust emergency in 2020. But really, I just wanted to say that we're super excited about the work that's going on in this space, and really seeing a huge growing interest amongst partners to work on innovative and scalable solutions in this sector of digital climate smart agriculture. Okay, so how do we implement our strategy at AgriFin? Very briefly, we focus on 3 areas really. So one is the ecosystem or partner capacity building around digital and climate smart agriculture. The second is the typical AgriFin model, where we design, test and scale solutions with partners. And the third is really building the evidence base and sharing knowledge on this topic area specifically. So I think on the first point, I wanted to focus on that a little bit today, because this has almost been an entry point for us, where we realized that, you know, for many people, this is still quite an abstract area, trying to understand what is climate smart agriculture, what does that mean in my country, for my business, for the farmers we're working with. And so what we've been doing the last 6 months or so is really trying to understand at a local and national level what this is, and then map on top of that what digital solutions can actually help to scale CSA in a local, customized way. So I'll share a couple of exciting resources that we're working on there. And then I think just to say that as I'd mentioned, we're seeing a huge growing interest, and there's of course a lot of climate work that can be highly scalable, but we're also seeing a lot of organizations and partners we're working with saying they need support on the R&D side, the early stage innovation, just to test out some new ideas, see if they work, and hopefully scale them through the AgriFin channels. So we're hoping to seek some additional funding next year to support that effort. Great. So as I mentioned, we've been working closely with Kristen, who's here in the audience, if anyone has technical questions. We've been working to develop a tool for partners that looks at climate change at the country level and includes specific risks across specific value chains. So we set out to identify what is the total addressable market for digital climate smart agriculture. So this means looking at climate vulnerability and the ability to adopt a digital solution. We looked at which crops and livestock are most vulnerable to climate change or climate impacts, and which crops and livestock are projected to increase or decrease in suitability under climate change. And finally, which DCSA solutions are most relevant for smallholder farmers of these different crops and livestock in different scenarios. Next slide, please. So I'll just very briefly take you through a couple of these slides today, just to give you a taster, but I think we're planning to do a proper launch of this work in the new year, so please stay tuned and we'll be able to explain it in detail. But as you can see on this slide, it's 34 million smallholder farmers is what we've identified as the total addressable market for digital climate-smart agriculture services. And that's across our 3 core countries that within ADF2, so Ethiopia, Nigeria and Kenya. It's staggering to see, obviously, Nigeria being such a big country, but the huge market opportunity there to serve farmers with digital climate-smart agriculture solutions. On the next slide, you'll be able to see how we've done this calculation. So we identified the number of smallholder farmers facing different climate hazards, multiplied that by the rural population that has access to mobile or is mobilely connected, and then came to a figure of 6.6 million or 7 million smallholder farmers that need and have the ability to use digital climate-smart agriculture. On the next slide, you see a comparison with Nigeria, where obviously the market is enormous. It's almost 26 million smallholder farmers in Nigeria need and have the ability to use DCSA. On this slide, you can see the range in what the story looks like at the country or national level. So, for example, in Nigeria, 100% of smallholder farmers are at risk of thermal stress, whereas in Kenya it's more to do with climate variability and drought, and in Ethiopia it's a whole range of different climate risks. I won't go into this one too much, but I think what's fascinating here is just to understand in terms of the loss potential. So this is beans in Kenya, looking at climate variability leading to drought, and that's putting almost $300 million in production of beans at risk, and that's just for beans in Kenya. So this has been really exciting work we've been doing with AgThrive and Kristen Gravetz, as well as with the Alliance of Biodiversity and CEAT, and we hope to be able to share more of that with you in the new year. So on to more about how we work with partners on DCSA. I think, as I'd mentioned, we understand there's a little bit of confusion still around this area, and how does it overlap with gender strategies, and how can you bring these together to essentially no longer have a climate or a gender pillar to your overall strategy, but they're very much sort of integrated to how you do your daily operations. So we've worked with Dalberg and CGAP recently to understand a bit more about partners' needs. And we've heard some really actually interesting insights coming back from a whole range of different partners across the board, many of whom are probably here today. So we've heard things about, next slide please. Partners or service providers are facing internal capacity gaps and limited management buy-in to serve rural women's climate needs. They're struggling to identify climate and gender partners along the value chain and build solid and high-level linkages with these partners. They mentioned they see a shortage in funding for projects which intersect gender and climate, particularly from commercial investors who perceive a low return on investment in this opportunity. And partners also see this need to support and focus on R&D before going on to scale these new DCSA products serving women in rural areas. So this is all really helping to shape how we implement our strategy at AgriFin. We're also, I just quickly mentioned that we're also about to launch an infographic with CGAP, again looking at the intersection of gender and climate. I wish I could have shared a screenshot with you, but I'll leave you with it, so stay tuned. I think with that, I will hand over to Elias, who'll introduce Sprout.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you everyone for joining this session. I'm really excited this afternoon to be finally and formally launching the Sprout platform this afternoon. So to just give everyone a brief kind of context and overview of how we came about designing and developing the Sprout platform, I wanted to just provide a little bit of context. Next slide, please. Firstly, many studies have projected that ag productivity throughout the continent has not been able to meet the growing demands. And as Victoria's mentioned during one of the poll questions, the continent continues to be a net importer of food. And despite having 60% of the arable land worldwide, this is caused by a number of factors, which include man-made shocks, environmental shocks, climate change, overexploitation of lands, and coupled with traditional farming practices, these have all kind of undermined productivity. So the problem that we're looking to address, or we've tried to address, is smallholder farmers don't necessarily have equitable access to modern, updated agricultural content. Despite there being a vast amount of it, it's just not easily accessible. We also know that digital platforms have emerged as a scale pathway to reach more farmers at a fraction of the cost as it would do to do face-to-face engagements or traditional kind of extension services. So we wanted to build on these experiences, leverage digital platforms. Not only that, we've also, based on our previous experiences, our previous engagements, especially with the work that we've done previously with our emergency response efforts with COVID-19 and desert locusts, we found that there was a demand, a need to access high quality, digital, farmer-friendly content. Through this engagement, we have a number of partners that we've worked with, and it's really great to see everyone here. We were able to crowdsource around a wide range of really reputable, high-quality, farmer-friendly digital content across 4 different countries with 20-plus farmer-facing organizations. And they were able to adapt, contextualize that content and plug it into their respective digital channels. It could be IVR, it could be SMS, it could be the respective digital platforms, WhatsApp, Facebook, radio, television. And we were able to reach somewhere upwards of 16 million plus smallholder farmers. And through that engagement, we really appreciated and understood that there was a dearth of high quality content and resources, but at the same time there was a demand for this kind of already adapted content that you can easily reutilize, adapt, and re-engage with. And again, we worked with Plant Village, who will be speaking in the panel coming up, MEDI, FAO, and ATI as well, in terms of just leveraging and recycling that content. So based on those experiences, based on those engagements, we felt that it was prudent to design and develop this, this platform, Sprout. Next slide, please. Again, which would focus on making sure that the content was open, accessible, that partners who had a mandate or experience or resources could upload those contents, and then those organizations that work directly with the respective farmers can reutilize, leverage, and disseminate that content in their respective manners. So we really wanted to focus on ensuring that the content was high quality, farmer friendly, and affordable and adaptable. Based on a number of the research we've done and engagements with our many partners, there were a number of gaps in terms of leveraging content. Either that, some of the engagements to obtain content would take an extensive amount of time and resources, or it's just costly. So we wanted to address those problems. Next slide, please. And in doing so, we created Sprout, which is ultimately an open digital ag platform where organizations that again have the experience and mandate and have the resources can share and plug in to this platform. And the content, again, is in a format that could be adapted, reutilized, contextualized, and farmer-facing organizations can plug into this content and reutilize those shared contents. And adapt it as they need, plug it into their respective channels. And based on our experiences, we've learned that the content that's downloaded is adapted into various languages. So our partners from Ethiopia have translated some content into Amharic and some of the other local languages that are suitable in their countries. Some of our partners in Kenya have taken some of our content and built upon it, plugged it into their farmers. I think DigiCow has also taken the content which they shared with the farmers and plugged it back into the platform so that other organizations can use the adapted farmer-tested content. So ultimately, that is the vision of Sprout. It's a B2B platform where it's content creators could share and upload content, and then farmer-facing organizations that engage directly with farmers can then download, adapt, and then share with their respective partners. Next slide, please. Again, the main objectives is leveraging those resources and or the content providers that specialize on that, ensuring that the platform is can accommodate APIs, can accommodate open access, and then ensure that the content could be updated and accessible. And then, again, ensure that the organizations that plug into the content can easily access and then share with their respective organizations. I want to hand over the floor to Kristen Peterson, the Sprout platform lead, and walk you through the interesting details.
I'm going to take a little deeper dive into the model. Sprout launched in what was a soft launch last year. We didn't really tell many people. We worked very closely with the cohort of Mercy Corps AgriFin's key partners across Africa. And we built a really amazing ecosystem of key partners that are using the service and have informed us on how to design the service, as well as expert content creation organizations that have provided us content that we have worked with them to transform and make it digital ready and farmer friendly. Just a little bit more about incentives. So we focused on farmer facing organizations because they have the relationship with farmers. Their incentives are aligned with improving farmers' performance. So giving and making content accessible that helps them improve farmers' performance is aligned with their farmers improving and the cycle repeating itself. So it's our belief that the scale path is to get good digital content out to farmer-facing organizations, and farmers will work with them. It will build their relationship, and farmers will be more likely to learn and adapt and change their behavior with this content, which is the ultimate goal. And we work on helping transform it, and we work with organizations, and any organization here who's interested and has content, we would love to work with you to build your content and make it available for farmer-facing organizations. This is just the beginning. We're talking to many organizations now about being farmer-facing or content creators, so please come join us. Next slide, please. Oh, and by the way, sorry, one thing. To date, the reach of our farmer-facing organizations is in the millions, and our content has reached over 1.7 million farmers. A significant portion are women, and we've engaged, and our partners have engaged, in other words, had two-way conversations with almost 1 million farmers. So it's their platform, it's a B2B, and they're B2C, and they communicate with the farmers and engage them. So a little bit more about what the content looks like. What you'll do is when you go to, anyone can go to Sprout, anyone can log in, all they need to do is register and they can download content. It's all free, it's all open. And so this is a little bit about what it looks like. There are various types of messages, as Elias said. And so what you'll see is when you download, you get different types of messages that are formatted for IVR, that are formatted for SMS, and multilingual. Everything in the Sprout platform is tagged, so you can just search on a tag to find out what you're interested in. You want Amharic? Search for Amharic. You want Kenya? Search for Kenya. Simple. Next slide. Okay, here's a little bit more about the content that we have. We have deep farmer learning journeys from land prep to going to market in a range of ag and then ag adjacent content. So we have crops, we have livestock, we have value added services, we have emerging tech, we're still building on that. We have CSA, which we're just beginning our journey there, and we have cross-cutting themes. And so you can see we're very demand-driven in regards to content development. We work with farmer-facing organizations, they tell us what they want. And we work with them to help design what they need, and then we release it on the platform and anyone can use it. Also, as Elias said, and as I found it today, I ran into one of our partners today at lunch, and he said he loves the platform, which is so exciting for me to hear because it was easy to adopt the content and download it and share it. He has a model of working with local ag vets. I'm not going to mention who it is because I didn't say I was going to do this, and farmers. And he thinks that content completes that cycle of building the relationship between the ag vet, his company, and the farmers to get repeat purchases and better performance from the farmers. But the other thing he said is as soon as I have content and I'm thinking of content to build, I'm going to share it back because I think ag vets need better training. And I'm going to share it back with you so you can share it out to the rest of the world. And so that's the whole idea around this. And as we build, as we evolve, as we get more languages, that comes back to the platform and repeats and out to a much broader set of content. Next slide. Okay, here's a few of our key initiatives for this year. And the first one is working with CGAP and a farmer-facing organization called We Agri. We just started our expansion into Francophone Africa, which is really exciting. And we leveraged our existing content and worked with them to focus on women and what value chains they were interested in and needed more content and agri-services for, or advisory services for. And what we did then was we created voice capsules, which is a thing. It's not a thing in Kenya, but it's a thing in West Africa. They don't use SMS. It's for some reason they don't like SMS there. Voice capsules, people want to listen to the advice. They don't want to read the advice. And we also created CSA videos, and I will say that the CSA videos are for Medii, and we worked very closely with a translation company and the local farmer-facing organization to evolve the terminology and the language, once it was translated into French, into a very localized adaptation so that farmers can take it and adapt it. That's another very important concept with us. We work with local organizations to localize the content. Talked about this in our meeting too, to simplify it so it's easily understandable and there's less technical terminology, and so it's easier to adopt by farmers. The next thing is Dynamic Weather Advisory Services, or DWAS, and we've just launched our first live service, not a static content service, and we've launched it with Tomorrow Now and Tomorrow.io. I'm looking for them in the audience, and I'll talk more about it in a minute, so I'm not going to go too much further on that. But our goal is ultimately to offer customized weather services for farmer-facing organizations and their farmers and groups, and then evolve it by working closely with ICRA, Tomorrow Now, and other key partners to add seasonal forecasts and crop advisories. And then finally, we're just launching our CSA and gender forward work with Sprout, and we're looking forward to working with content organizations and working with the Mercy Corps team who can help guide us on how we launch and deepen those strategies for Sprout. Although I will say Sprout is a CSA platform in general, And because our goal is to help farmers adapt. So next slide, please. So I'm really excited to talk about this, and we've been showing this off in the room next door. So we just launched live services, customized weather for farmers and farmers groups, and we launched it 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we're working with Tomorrow Now and Tomorrow.io, which has the weather data. That is accessible from Sprout, our platform. Farmer-facing organizations upload to our platform their data sets around farmers, farmer or group, anonymous, and the crop. And then anytime they want, they can pull a forecast. So all I have to do is press a button, download it, or API it over to their systems. And that is in, right now, English and Kiswahili. And that data comes customized with a simplified 7-day forecast that allows farmers to make decisions based on what's going to happen within 3 to 9 kilometers of where they are, and enables them to make decisions about going to market, about applying fertilizer. And we're really excited about that, but we're not going to stop there. We're going to add, just imagine if you add future services like potentially working with ICRA, looking at seasonal forecasts down to a regional location, adding very simple crop instructions. We're going to use human-centered design to develop this over time, working very closely, fielding some research in January to really understand what the farmers' needs are, what the FFO's needs are, so that we make what they want, not what we want. Okay, so next slide. Please. Thank you. Okay, and this is where are we going? So where are we going next year? Well, we've just shown you a hint of offering service providers. We're offering Tomorrow.io, Tomorrow Now, as a service provider. But imagine a platform where multiple service providers can plug in. Soil, information on soil, mechanization, anything can be customized based on the farmer data that is uploaded from a FFO, and they say, oh, we want soil, we want this, we want that. Now, it's oversimplified, but that's where we're going. And so we want to open it up to service providers who have actionable information for organizations and their farmers. Content. We plan to deepen and scale our climate smart and gender focus. Of course, we want to expand in West Africa and deepen in the countries we're already in. Channels, just really deepening more content for different channels, working with content creation organizations, and ultimately we want to start to include feedback loops and collaboration. And then finally, right now, kind of getting techie, we're an open source CCAN database management system that we've overlaid Sprout services, and it has APIs embedded, but we also want to look at how we could move towards having a more dynamic chatbot strategy that would be white label so that we can offer more dynamic services, but only to the organizations, not to the farmers directly, so that they can take those and use whatever they want in context to their relationship with their farmers. So that's a little bit about us and where we're going, and I forgot to mention sustainability plan, so I'm just going to say that. We also are working on that next year. Wasn't talked about, but there we go. So if you're interested, please let us know. We're really looking for partners. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sophie Rotman. For those whom I haven't met, it's really great to see so many familiar faces. I was saying to Victoria and the Mercy Corps team, it's great at least once a year we all meet at the Mercy Corps ALE and at least get to see each other after a few years of Zoom calls and many, many emails. So I just want to speak today about the work that we've been doing with Mercy Corps on developing climate smart videos. But first, I'd just like to briefly introduce who we are. So At Media, we look at how we can use media to support education and development. We've been doing that for several decades now. Initially started off with radio and moved into television as the times have changed, essentially. And our model is really to develop content working together with the research, development, commercial sector, develop series. So we usually do television series that allows us to keep running over many years, big bill audiences, and reach our target audiences in a sustainable way. Next slide. And so the program that I think we're talking about today is called Shamba Shaper, and it's a farm makeover TV program on smallholder farms. Most Kenyans will know it, but for those who don't, we are a seasonal program, so right at the beginning of March, we start the season with issues around soil testing, seed selection, getting the right seed varieties for your area. And as we move along with the main growing season, we're now looking at pest and disease control, all the way to harvesting, market, storage, or rather storage and then markets. So this model has worked really well. It's an edutainment program, so we've got 2 presenters, they're very likable, there's a lot of there's a lot of entertainment which draws in the audiences, but generally it's an educational program, and that's why people are watching, because we're trying to serve their information needs. So in Kenya, the program is filmed and broadcast in both English and Kiswahili. It runs on a Saturday and a Sunday every week, and at the moment we have 8 to 10 million viewers who tune in every week to watch the program. And we've built this audience over years, so that's again why we're there with a series. When we started 12 years ago, we had an audience of 3 million, and over the years this has grown. So clearly it's a program that's liked, people are watching it, they're being entertained, and also their information needs are being met, which is really, really key in terms of actually getting people to join your platform, the ideas that we all have here. I think we need to keep in mind, why are people engaging with us? And we found that entertaining people while meeting their information needs works really well. And so another thing that we do with the program is that we do research around it. So before we broadcast, we do a baseline, what we call CAP research, knowledge, attitudes, and practice. It gives us a sense of what people know, what they think about, and what they're doing around a certain issue. So do you know what a soil test is? Do you think it's a good idea? And have you done one? And then after we finish broadcast, we do a post-CAP, asking very similar questions, and it gives us, as the producers, a sense of, what do people already know? What would they like know more about, and what partners can we engage in order to meet those needs? So again, it's a dynamic program, and it's informed by what's relevant. And over the last, I think, 3 years now, our focus has entirely been on climate change adaptation, and going forward it will be as well. This season in particular, we're focusing on engaging young farmers to farm as a business, so moving away from subsistence farming more towards agribusiness. We're really happy to announce that last year we launched Shamba Shape in Uganda, so the first season ran there. It was received really well. We've just started filming the second season this week, and then we also just launched it in Zambia, actually working together with ICRA and the U2 program. So I see Evan is back there. We've worked really closely with his team to take it to Zambia as well. So, next slide, please. So just to go back, I know this conference has very much been around digital tools, digital learning, and again, I think that's a great thing. But for us, our question has always been, what is useful to a farmer? What is useful to the people that we're trying to serve? So why do we do television? I mean, for one thing, television is a digital medium. Again, we've moved on from analog. You can access a lot of our programming on your television, no matter where you are. You can watch it on YouTube, you can watch it online. But also, you're able to reach large audiences with television. So again, in Kenya, we're on national television, reaching 4.2 million households every week. The estimate we work with is 2 people watching per household, but actually our recent CAP survey showed that 23% of people are watching with 2 or 3 other people. So you can imagine the impact is actually huge in terms of audience. Again, people are discussing the program, and there's a lot of research to show that the impact of information is much larger when you have people discussing it as they're watching it. So that's really important. Next slide, please. Yeah. I think we've had this one, yeah. So the other one is audience trust. So we've been able to build trust of our program over the years. When we ask farmers, what is your most trusted source of agricultural information, you'll find that 88% are saying television. So that's really huge. If you look along this line, it goes further down. There's internet, family, friends, agro dealers, and extension are really right at the bottom. So again, I think with television, you have a huge potential to reach people in an impactful way because they're seeing television as their most trusted source of agriculture information. That's really important. The other one is that people that are watching television or have access to television are probably in the cash economy or in and out of the cash economy. So again, we're reaching people who are able to afford to take the risk to make a change that we're recommending. So if you're telling somebody, it's a really good idea to do crop rotation or to use minimum tillage, they need to make a change from what they're currently doing. And if they're part of the lower socioeconomic group, they're less likely to want to take that risk because if it fails, that's ruined their livelihood. So we're trying to reach people that can afford to make a change. And they again often become, the friends and neighbors that people in the lower social economy trust and will refer to, because now they're seeing, you used to bring down 5 liters of milk every day, and now you have, you've got 2 cans. So you maybe, what have you done, and how could I learn from you? So for us, again, it's important that we're reaching people that are going to take the risk to make the change. The other reason for television, which is quite obvious, is that it's very visual. So again, messaging is great. SMS is good. Voice, we work a lot with voice as well, and we have all of that. But again, with television, if you're trying to show somebody a practice or explain to them, how to set up a nursery, having television or having a visual medium is very impactful because they can see it. Yes, I think extension and demonstrations on farms are very, very useful, but in terms of reaching people at a scale, television can do that really well. So here are just some of the figures on reach. I think we launched this project in March or April. So since then, we've had over 209,000 people that accessed this content either through the Facebook or through Sprout. 1,000 engagements on Facebook, and then these are views, 5,600 views on our channel. But basically, I think video has an incredible, powerful way of supporting people actually make changes because they can see it. And really keen to have a bit more of a discussion around that in the panel and see how we can actually work together to reach farmers with information that's useful to them through whichever digital tools that are available. So I think that's it from me. That should be it. Good, thank you. Sorry, I kind of got carried away.
Thank you, such a catchy tune. Adam Wills is next up. He's the co-founder and CTO for Learn.Inc., right?
Hi everyone. I'll try and be quick because I know that you probably guys want to ask some questions. And so if we could get to the next slide. So actually I'm going to talk from a slightly different perspective from maybe some of the other partners here today. In learning, one of the problems that we're interested in is how organizations can train tens of thousands of distributed field agents across Africa. So what we hear from a lot of our customers, and by the way, we're a private sector focused B2B platform, is that agents who don't get it cost companies expenses and lost revenue. And increasingly, smartphones are the #1 agent tool that a lot of our customers and companies are using. So basically, we're interested in riding the wave of this smartphone adoption. So if we could have a look at the next slide. Just a little bit of background on myself. So I'm, as Victoria said, the CTO, but actually myself and my co-founder are both software developers. We both came from GSMA, so it's good to see a bunch of you guys here today. But in 2016, we actually came to Kenya, and the genesis of our platform is us actually going out and coding a load of failed prototypes for farmers, actually. And for those of you who actually know the earlier incarnations of Learn.Inc., we are actually called Farm.Inc., and Learn.Inc., by the way, is a kind of nod to our now cross-sector focus, now looking at quite a lot more sectors than just agriculture alone. But now we're actually in 38 countries, and next year is scaling up to 1 million monthly active users. And I'd say one of the things that's quite unique about our platform is active users correspond to around 2 course completions. That means like an actual certificate that people earn. And so we'll be issuing next year in the region of 2 million of those certificates every month across our customers. And there are actually a bunch of you here today who are our customers. So we work with Apollo Agriculture, Crop Nuts, Sun Culture, and these are just a few of our Kenyan partners who use our technology. So if you could go to the next slide. Basically, to kind of give you a really quick rundown, the thing that's unique about the platform is that, on the one hand, we give companies an editor where they actually create their own training. So what you can do is create interactive conversational lessons very, very fast. So typically, organizations turn their training rounds in less than a day. They turn that into content that's accessible, localized, and gamified. So the platform can actually read entire courses to you, because we know that lower literacy is sometimes a challenge. But most critically, and for a lot of our customers, is all of this data can be streamed in near real time back to their operations teams, back to their BI dashboards. And one of the most critical things that we see increasingly from our commercial customers is that they need to mix training performance and the value of this content with commercial KPIs. So how well do their agents sell? How well do they actually kind of engage in certain behaviors that are revenue generating for the business? So on the next slide, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the AgriFin engagement, which sort of fits into this picture of our work. Oh, and by the way, against my better judgment, there is a tech demo that probably won't work. So, but if you do actually want to try the course that these guys created, actually, even a surprise to the Sprout guys, it's actually on a Sprout instance of our platform. So you will actually be using a Sprout version of the training they created, just to show you how fast it is to get this stuff up and running. But the AgriFin guys actually created some courses in our platform that now can be freely used by all of our ag partners. And the hypothesis here is that actually training content is sometimes hard to come by. And the idea is basically our partners or our customers can pick this content at a click of a button out of the platform, customize it, edit it, and use it for their own training purposes. So actually we see a great mix of how open source and kind of the donor work can fit into the commercial model we have for engaging customers in this space. So just a quick kind of next slide. Actually, this is a very recent project, and this is only 2 months after launch, but we got around, I think, 1.6 thousand guys, of course, across our customers, who are themselves, because these are all agricultural field agents, estimated to touch 16,000 or so agents. What was more interesting, though, is pretty much all these guys were getting a certificate in their hand. And as I said, one of the interesting things and anecdotal data points that we like about our impact is that the agents really care about these training certificates that they get. We often hear that they're actually downloading and printing the PDFs that we auto-generate for them out of the platform. So in final slide. To kind of just give you a little picture about where we're going next, the learning platform is designed to be highly affordable, out-of-the-box B2B solution for organizations who are working to train anyone with a smartphone. So the idea is this can plug into existing applications. It's available over web and Android and all other interfaces. And I suppose as part of this project, we can easily integrate with open source content and basically be just the de facto training tool for a number of organizations who are facing farmer agents or agents in other kind of areas as well. So people can tell me whether the tech demo actually worked, but yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. And Claire Van Enck, who's the founder of Farm to Feed. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you. Very excited to be here. My name is Claire Van Enck. I'm founder of Farm to Feed. I'm going to use the fake clicker so that, yes. I'm just going to stand here so you can see the slide. So I'll take you through the problem first of what we're facing. So everyone knows, usually most people know the statistic that 1/3 of all food produced is lost or wasted globally. If we zoom in sub-Saharan Africa and we zoom in fruits and vegetables, it's half of fruits and vegetables that never reach the consumer. Half, which is a massive scale. That's everything we see, everything we eat, everything we see in terms of retail, all of that is also dumped daily and turns into various things. Yeah. So that has impact on the economy, of course. So Kenya loses 1.5 billion USD annually due to post-harvest losses. It has a climate impact. So 10% of greenhouse gas emissions come from food loss and waste, 10%, which is 6 times more than the global aviation industry. And then food security. So the devastating impact, or the paradox, is that 1 out of 3 Kenyans faces food insecurity. Meanwhile, 2 hours outside of Nairobi, for example, a lot of this food actually doesn't reach the markets. And what is food loss and why does it occur? And a lot of people already know it's transport, lack of cold storage, lack of infrastructure, but also in a country that's so dependent on smallholder farming, it's very difficult to grow an onion exactly the size of the palm of my hand, because you need the right inputs, you need the right fertilizers, you need rain or you need irrigation, you can't have a drought, it needs to be harvested at the same time, it needs the right technique to be harvested, your potato can't be damaged. So there's so many factors to determine what a perfect onion looks like, or potato, or tomato, etc., etc. So what is Farm to Feed? We are the digitally enabled, replicable solution to food loss. So we aggregate imperfect and surplus produce, this is in a nutshell, and we rescue, repurpose, and sell this to customers. So we reduce pressure on the environment and increase food affordability. So some see a problem. This is a handful of what we have that day in the warehouse when I was making this presentation. Some see a problem, so when it's too many, too small, unripe, too wonky, discolored, blemished, too big, when there's handling damage, but we see the opportunity. It's a lower cost produce. It reduces carbon and environmental footprint, and I'll get more into that. It's a positive social impact. We're directly boosting farmer incomes with produce that would otherwise be leaving the human food chain. It's convenient. We do the sourcing, quality control, and direct delivery to our customers, and we're changing the perception of food loss. So Africa's population and the world's population is doubling by 2050 with current farming practices and consumption practices. This poses a huge challenge in terms of how much we have to eat of the planet in order to feed ourselves. But it also creates a huge opportunity to change the food system. So it's transforming, it's supporting farmer incomes, of course, boosting farmer incomes and making them more climate resilient. It's reducing the environmental footprint and improving food affordability. So the digital climate smart agriculture, this is our platform. We aim with this platform to reach more farmers, so the producers, boosting incomes and increasing climate resilience, off-taking, expanding demand, repurposing more food rescue, as we call it. We don't call it food loss, we call it food rescue. Data for transformation, so everyone repeats the mantra of 50% of fruits and vegetables is lost and wasted, but we don't actually know very granular why, where does this happen, which value change, which seasons, which farmer groups, which crops. So we're already collecting all of that data so that we can actually develop future interventions very localized and very specific for certain crops. And we're really creating ecosystem for climate resilience, so on the demand side and on demand on farmer side and demand on consumer side, creating this platform for climate-driven inputs as well as off-takers. And then seamless operations to scale our own impact. So this platform that we're developing with Mercy Corps really helps us scale our own business, reaching more farmers, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about food loss certification. So what is the impact of, how do we impact the climate change? So it's actually in two ways. So Farm to Feed ensures food stays in the human food chain, which is really important. And that way we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions in two ways. One is the food does not have to be reproduced because the demand is still there. So if it stays in the human food chain, we consume it. The farmer gets an income and we also get the food. And emissions that are related to food loss, and I'm not sure if everyone knows, but if food is dumped and it rots, it releases methane, and methane is a greenhouse gas 30 times more potent than CO2. Working with these partners, I think that's next slide. Yep. So we've tracked our impacts from the get-go. We're really focused on the SDGs. So we track how much we are rescuing. We convert. We have worked with Wageningen University, and we're talking to WRI and Vera, where if you order 1,000 kgs of carrots from us, we know the CO2 avoidance emissions, and we're working towards carbon credits. The methodology is coming out next year, so that's sort of our next project. How many more affordable veg portions, of course, we've rescued, and direct boosted incomes to farmers. And we're just getting started. We're 2 years old, pivoted last year. So yeah, I think that's it. Thank you so much, and looking forward to the panel.
Thank you, Ram. If you can also just introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you, Victoria. Hi, my name is Ram. I'm currently with the International Livestock Research Institute, working as a senior scientist, digital agriculture and innovation. Yeah, okay. Today I'm here to speak about a tool that we piloted basically in India in the year 2017 in collaboration with Microsoft, India Meteorological Department, and some of the local agriculture universities. What we attempted to do here was, essentially, if you look at the field of meteorology, right, weather forecasters are increasingly deploying higher, better hardware. They're also coming up with newer models. Consequently, there's a lot of good climate and weather data that is increasingly available, right? Now, how do you convert, that is essentially data, right? How does that data become information which is very, very actionable for farmers, right? So this was a small pilot project we attempted with Microsoft to essentially bridge that gap between meteorology and agriculture extension, okay? So here is a quick context. Most weather-linked extension and climate information services are not really very location specific. They are generalized for all crops and soils. And generally, there's a lot of fragmentation because there are a number of players today. Thanks to the ecosystem, a lot of private sector also doing a lot of extension. A lot of people are picking the same information and kind of dumping it onto the farmer. Consequently, if you can next clicker, please. Yeah, one more click, please. Sorry, there's an animation. Yeah. Consequently, the farmer is basically confused, right? So this was kind of the context somewhere in 2016 and 17 when we basically attempted this particular exercise. Next slide, please. Yeah, the net result of this is basically disadoption of technology by the farmer, okay? Okay, so this is a small working paper of the work we did. What we tried to do, at least, based on our own surveys, based on our own research, what we figured out that, generally, there is better adoption of climate information services by farmers when the advice to the farmer is real-time, location and crop specific, and the advisories factor in the historical, current, and predicted, weather conditions, right? And when I say forecast of weather, there is a different time scale to it. You can have daily forecasts all the way through to seasonal forecasts as well, right? Now, this is where, I think this term called digital climate informed advisory services is also becoming very, very popular. So I'm calling it DCAS here. So what DCAS can do is it can improve smallholder productivity and profitability. And secondly, you see, the good thing about the afternoon today, as I was listening through, we had Media Eye, then we had Adam presenting, right? So those were two channel partners, right? So these are actors who really understand the last mile dissemination. They know how to package the information in a way so that it is more palatable to the farmer, right? As CG institutions, our capacity is more upstream, more in the area of science. So our task is how do you really then create the content so that someone like them who really understand the farmer can really take it to the last mile and generate the impact that we all aspire for, right? So this exercise was basically an attempt to do that. So essentially, how do you then create content which can be disseminated via different pluralistic channels, be it SMS, mobile apps, voice broadcasts, or et cetera, and last but not the least, right? One key lesson that we really learned is, advisory to farmers also has to align with the lived realities of the farmers, right? You can't really come up with an advisory which falls outside the gambit of options that are possible for the farmers. So these were some guiding principles that guided us on our effort. If you can go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the tool called, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping slides here. Okay, so how do you cope with climate risk, right? These are some of the tactical options. You can select a right crop type or a variety or an animal breed, or you can, some tactical options could be around timing of planting or harvesting, or in-season adjustment of inputs and target output. So these are some gamut of options that farmers have in order to cope with climate risk, right? Some of the more strategic and more long-term options could be redesigning farming systems, which could be based on historic and future climate analysis and modeled scenario analysis, or co-design of farm systems for resilience and infrastructure and institutions, right? So, and again, it's not as if farmers operate in a knowledge vacuum, right? They also, inherit a lot of indigenous knowledge that they actually put to use, right? Without we probably not realizing it. If you go, yeah, Can go to the next one? Yeah. So this is the tool that we basically co-created with Microsoft, IMD, and a bunch of other local universities in 2017. And under the framework of ICRA, we are trying to bring some of this thinking and some of these approaches to the 6 countries of ICRA, which is a World Bank funded project. So as part of this, what we really try to do, if you can just go to can click once more. Yeah. So one of the first steps that we tried to do was we tried to do a lot of farmer group discussions where we tried to identify some of the farmer strategic and tactical decisions, right? As I was just trying to mention, any advisory will only succeed if the advisory falls within the gamut of options that is accessible to the farmers, right? So you can't recommend a variety which the farmer has no access to, right? So as part of that process, what we tried to do was we tried to convene farmer group discussions and really try to understand what are the different strategic and tactical decisions or options that are available to the farmers, number one. Second, we also then try to understand what is the farmer's perception of climate, how is it that they really make decisions with respect to climate or weather forecast, some of this stuff, right? Secondly, what we then tried to do was we tried to model some of those, on one hand, we had all these different options. Then we put some of the scientific approaches that were available to CGR, like crop simulation modeling or climatology or lots of data analytics. And then, based on different scenarios, we tried to arrive at what are the package of technology options that are available or disposable to the farmers, right? So that was the second step. Once we had this information, all this information, we basically coded them into some sort of decision trees, right? Which I will just show to you in the next slide. Once we had these decision trees, it became very simple for us to basically program this into a simple application, a cloud-based application, right? If you can basically just go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is kind of a sample of the decision trees that we created after a lot of consultation and a lot of crop simulation modeling. So what this decision tree does, so this is what I call as a pre-season advisory, right? And this is for Kenya, by the way. So suppose you are in the first week of September, which is I think which is 1 month before the October, November, December season, right? That time comes in, and traditionally, the Kenya Mid Department or organizations like IGAD, they issue what is called as a seasonal climate forecast, right? Now suppose if they give out the seasonal climate forecast and they say that the upcoming season is going to be an El Nino season or a La Nina season, right? So assuming that it's an El Nino season, right? And suppose, I'm sorry, there is a small typo here. And also, suppose, and typically when they issue a seasonal climate forecast, they also try to come up with a number that what is the rainfall that the season is likely to come. And this is again not for whole of Kenya. This is specific to a particular county. Based on that, the decision tree goes and then it queries whether the seasonal climate forecast also tells whether if it's an El Nino season or a La Nina season. Suppose the answer is yes. Can you go to the next slide? Then my decision tree says, there is a high probability to get above average rainfall during the coming season. The risk of growing maize and green gram is very low on good soils. On poor soils, allocate some land to plant sorghum and millets. So there, what you're trying to do is take very, very high-end quantifiable information into something more which is more palatable and understandable for the farmer, right?